morning, good afternoon, or good evening. Welcome to this episode of SMB Live Rewind. And in this episode, we're going to take an overview of Azure, a high level picture of what it is and how it actually works. My name's Matt Hester. I'm a senior partner technology strategist out of the South Central area for the Microsoft SMB organization. Well, to understand Azure, let's actually take a bit of a step into the past and let's talk about Edison versus Tesla for a moment. Now, when you think about these two gentlemen, they had two very different opinions on how we were going to power this country. You had Edison on one side that had all the generators, and if you wanted to build a factory that created shoes or chairs or socks and you needed power for that factory, you had to have a generator for that factory in that factory, and you had to have all the pieces, parts, the people that supported it. Whereas if you were working with Tesla and you had alternating current, he basically had a big long line. Tesla kept all the generators essentially with his information and he ran a cable around the world. Now we know how this story ends in our world today. We're all running AC to our houses and to our environments we have. The generators are going across all those wonderful power cables. But this all kind of came to a head in 1893 at the Chicago World Fair. Now in 1893 they wanted to hold the World Fair out at night. They actually wanted to do something that had never been done before. Now the challenge was in 1893 doing things at night, you had to have light and you had to have power for that. But there also at this time was a gentleman by the name of H.H. Holmes running around. Now H.H. Holmes was America's very first serial killer, and no, I'm not making this up. You can actually read about this in a book called Devil in the White City by Eric Larson. Now the interesting thing about this World Fair, and you notice the Devil in the White City, what they did when they built all the buildings, they used white marble, they used white paint, they tried to organize all this. But back to our story of Edison versus Tesla into this, and it mirrors our story of on-prem technologies and cloud technologies. Well, back then in 1893, they actually went to Edison. He was kind of the incumbent in the world today, and they said, how much will it take to power this World Fair? In 1893, Edison said $2 million. And they said, well, that's way too much money. We're already over budget and behind schedule. And Edison said, well, for some naming rights and for some other things, I'll drop it and it'll be about $550,000 for the same kind of power. Well, this once again was still too high for the World Fair, although it was much more reasonable. It was almost a 75% price cut. Well, they contacted Tesla and it was only $400,000, and Tesla won the contract. Now, when you think about this, and once again, the book Devil in the White City talks about all this wonderful knowledge. This is how our world is today. This is how we live today. Do we have on-prem workloads? Do we have cloud workloads? Or do we do both? And how do we handle that? So when you think about this, the lesson versus Edison and Tesla really mirrors our technologies today in IT and how we actually can work with it. And where does Azure and where does Microsoft play in this big picture that we have? Let's start off with, what is a cloud? A simple definition, it's a place to run your stuff, to run your customer stuff. There's nothing in the definition of a cloud that says, hey, this is on-prem, or all in the public cloud or in the hybrid environment, which is both. It's really you based on what your needs. You put your technologies where it solves the problem for your customers and where it solves the best solution for your customers. And government actually defines cloud as having several characteristics for this. And these can be done on-prem. You can do on-demand self-service, ubiquitous network access. In other words, I want to get it from wherever I am. I want to resource all of my, have my resources all pooled together. I want to measure that pay per use, and I want elasticity. Probably the biggest benefit of any cloud computing technology is the elasticity to be able to grow and shrink to meet those different workloads and those different needs for your customers and for those solutions that we have. At the end of the day, though, a customer is going to look at using the cloud for only two reasons. And really, a lot of your customers, our Satya said, cloud first, mobile first world that we live in. That's a customer statement. Customers are looking to move to the cloud. And what is really driving that? Well, there's only two reasons, my friends. And really, one is to improve the bottom line, to save money or to make more money, to enable some things, which ties into the second reason, improve the strategy over the organization. That's really what's driving this whole transition to the cloud, to help improve how the organization does things and help save money at the same time. And that's what cloud technologies do. They do it incredibly well for us to actually work with inside of your organizations, not only for yourself as a partner, but also for your customers that we have. And really at the end of the day, there's four main types of workloads that run in the cloud. There's on and off. This is great for dev and testing and proof of concepting. What's nice about this, if you have customers that do development, chances are their IT department doesn't want the developers messing with the production environment. environment. In comes the cloud. They can go up, they can spin things up and test in production and get rid of them if they don't work. On and off. They want to have that. Maybe your customers are growing fast. And when I say growing fast, hopefully they are growing fast from a financial and profitability standpoint. But more to this slide, it's about growing their IT demands. They need more storage, they need more capacity, they need more. Well, that's where the cloud can come in and help growth and not become something that will stop their growth because you have to wait for the server to ship and get it all re-racked. That's where the cloud can help do those types of things. Unpredictable demand. I always joke is what if some celebrity mentions your company's website or your customer's websites on a TV show that's nationally syndicated? Is your customer going to be able to handle that? Is that workload going to be able to hand that kind of burst? Well, the great thing about this is that the cloud is geared for these types of things. Or better yet, what if you have a customer that has predictable bursting? Maybe you're working with a retailer. We know, we have Cyber Monday around the holidays for buying things, and they have all that information. Can their workloads handle this? And can they work with it? Or if they're, they sell pizza, they might, Super Bowl Sunday, they want to make sure it's up and running. Or they're a tax company. They know April 15th is coming here in the US. So they have that predictable bursting that's there. Look for those types of things, and that's where cloud technologies can come into play. Because why is this important? Well, when you look at it, before cloud technologies, IT departments, and even you as a managed service provider for your customers had to guess. Your customers would say, hey, we need this XYZ workload. We had to forecast for that. And over time, chances are that forecast got a little bit bigger and a little bit bigger and a little bit bigger. Now think about this. Chances are, especially if they had predictable demand and they were a tax company, they were probably trying to solve their IT demands for that one day or for that 1 month of workload that they were going to occur. Well, the nice thing about this is that we don't have to really necessarily worry about that. But the bad thing about this and how we did things in the past is that workload was never a linear line. And chances are IT departments overbought. And next year, guess what? They'd have to do it all over again. But in reality, the actual workload was not a line. It wasn't linear. Now, if we had periods where we had, extra capacity, that's not a bad thing. It's also not a good thing either, right? Because we had servers that are just sitting idle for us to work with and your customers didn't know what to do with it. The problems you had to worry about this is in those areas where we didn't have capacity, highlighted in blue here. When we were under capacity and customers were getting server 500, that's lost revenue to a business. That's IT not fulfilling their obligations to the business model, not predicting accurately. And I'll tell you what, being in IT, it's hard to predict those workloads. More importantly, your IT people would have headaches and they couldn't play golf. And chances are you had a conversation, something along the lines, hey, I think you have great talents and should look for other career opportunities. This was a bad thing, right? When you have undersized IT demands for what your customer demanding, this is bad, right? This is not good. Well, this is where the cloud can come in. And it allows us to dial up and dial down those demands. That's that elasticity that I talked about that really makes it go up and down. It becomes almost an electricity. It almost becomes like Tesla, right? The more we use, the more that bill is going to be that month. But the good thing about it, we're not paying that for the entire year. So yeah, April 15th for our financial company, chances are they're going to have more IT workload than what they have the other 11 months of the year. But the good thing about it, we don't have to forecast for that 1 month. We can let the cloud technologies handle that for all of us, and more importantly, your IT department gets to go play golf, right? So think about this. That's what a cloud does. That's what a cloud environment is, and that's how we work with it. Now, from our perspective, there are a couple different models that we have. We actually have 4 models. We have on-prem, and this is one that we're all familiar with, right? You control everything from storage to applications to all the data. Then you have IaaS, or infrastructure as a service, and this is where you don't have to worry about the actual hardware. This is going to be done in our data centers with Azure, but you'll worry about the virtual machine, the operating systems, everything up on top of it. You're just not having to worry about hardware. Then you have platform as a service, or PaaS. And this environment that we have is where you don't have to worry about everything but just the application and data access. Now, the PaaS platform is great for developers, especially if they want to build high-end apps that scale very quickly. So if I need 10 more servers, Azure is great at this, especially if those enterprise apps. You can do the same thing with IaaS as well. And then lastly, you have SaaS, where software as a service. Now, this is commonly known as and probably the biggest cloud provider that everybody uses, and we just generally pay a per user per monthly fee. Salesforce falls into this, Office 365 falls into this, even the consumer side services, things like Xbox Live, fall into software as a service. Now, here's what's fun about all four of these models. Microsoft's the only company that can do all four. We're the only company. So when you partner with us and you partner from a cloud perspective, we can offer these end-to-end solutions for your customers from an on-prem all the way to SaaS and everything in between. And chances are, if you're selling 365, you already kind of got some of that information and some of that Kool-Aid of what cloud technologies can do for your customers. Now the challenge is, how do I expand into IaaS or PaaS for my different customers and the different solutions that Azure can come in? We also are the only company that's in Gartner's Magic Quadrants for all of this. And when you look at the different major quadrants for virtualization, for public cloud services, for IaaS, Microsoft's the only one that's there. And where is Amazon and VMware and all the other ones? They're not there. We're the only one in all four, and we're leader in all four of these Magic Quadrants, according to Gartner. Now, when you look at this, that's a pretty big statement to make when you think about our capabilities of our cloud providers. So we've taken our investments in the cloud very seriously, but also the integration with an on-prem environment to the SaaS environment to the storage has all been taken into consideration on how Azure can actually do that for you. Now, Azure actually is located around the world. Now, this slide is a bit dated. It has 19 available regions. I know we're over 20 today. We actually have Canadian regions just came online recently, but that's more than AWS and Google combined. That's how big our cloud is, and it's getting bigger. We have one of the world's largest private networks that support our Azure environments inside of it. Now, when you think about Azure, folks, you think, oh, this is great. Microsoft's all in when it comes to Azure. We have the different storages. We're a large cloud. We do all the different types of workloads. But one of the things when I talk to partners, they always get around, hey, this is Azure or on-prem. This is not an or conversation for you as a company or for your customers. This is an and conversation. You want to look at those business needs. You want to look at that integration. You want to look at what Azure can do for you. More importantly, well, I've had partners come up and tell me all the time, say, Matt, I want to be able to sell Azure. My question that will always come back when you ask me that is, what do you do well today? What do you do well on-prem today? And let's think, will that translate to some Azure fundamentals? So now you can go to your customers and say, yeah, we do backup really well for our customers. Hey, have you thought about Mr. and Mrs. Customer? We'll do we'll do backup on-prem for you, and let's talk about how Azure can help even extend that and offer a better backup solution than what we're currently offering for you inside of the environments. And when you look at the different workloads that we can run in Azure, this is not only for you to evaluate what you do well today, from virtualization to identity. You might do some great things with Azure, with Active Directory. Azure Active Directory will help you with that. You might do some great things with SQL. You might do some development services. Find out what you do well today and do they translate to Azure. And chances are you're going to have a wonderful and story that you'll be able to offer that customer that wonderful solution from on-prem all the way to the Azure environment. So always think and, not or. And then it's really of how do we map to those different solutions? Because when you look at Azure, it has a lot of capabilities. We have our app services where we can run things like our websites and we can do data analytics. We have our Azure Active Directory up there with identity. We have our data services, things like SQL database, working with all the blob storage and be able to store data. And then we have our infrastructure services. We have virtual machines. We can do virtual networking. We have VPN capabilities. We can do content delivery. Don't be overwhelmed by the flexibility that Azure offers you and your customer, but be very focused on what part of Azure you want to do and start with, hey, we do this really well on-prem today. Does it translate into one of these buckets inside of Azure? Because Azure is an amazing environment. It offers a lot of flexibility. I can send you case studies on how we did the Sochi Olympics in Russia because they chose Microsoft Azure over Amazon Web Services because of the flexibility, because we could do things of delivering streaming video to people who wanted to watch the Olympics online, to doing analytics under the covers and athlete logistical type of stuff. An amazing type of case study. To we actually have a case study for North American Eagle, which is a land speed racing car. They're trying to make a car go faster than anything ever in the world or in the history of the world that we know of. That's all done with little devices and sensors they have on the car. And where's all that data being stored as this car's flying down its track environment down I think it's in Great Salt Lake for all I know. That's all being tracked in Azure. They're having real-time data delivered and Azure's handling it all. So Azure can offer a variety and breadth of solutions for your customers that really has been unthinkable in the past when you look at previous technologies that we have. Now, kind of a little bit of geekdom. This is actually a picture of an Azure data center. So here's the trick, folks. What is Azure? It's a big giant data center running physical workloads. Matt, you just said that's an on-prem environment. Yeah, exactly right. All Azure is a giant on-prem data center running workloads. Now, Microsoft Azure in particular is running all Hyper-V, and a typical data center like this one, this is a picture of Chicago from above, has anywhere between 125,000 to 200,000 physical servers actually located in the facility that we have. The brown stripe in the building, just a kind of curiosity, is part of a firewall technology in case of one part of the building goes down. And we actually have heating and cooling, and you see the cooling towers in kind of the right-hand side of the picture to actually cool the facility in case something does go wrong or we need this. But these are the pictures, the facility that we have inside of here. Now, how big is that, to kind of give you a little more perspective? It's big enough to hold two jumbo jets, about the size of a football field. More importantly, when you look at inside these data center, that's just one building that we have. Inside any given region, we actually have 16 of these buildings per region. So when you choose South Central, which is the data center region closest to me, we actually have all the data centers inside of the state of Texas. There are over 16 of those, which provides an amazing amount of capacity. So when everybody talks about how big's Azure, well, just one region has over about 600,000 servers into it. And that's just one, and there's over 19 of those in the world today. So Azure is an immense type of capacity and storage space that we can offer not only for your business to improve, but also for your customers' business as well. Lastly, how do we generate this? How are we doing even more? Well, we actually are working with a fairly mature technology around IT pre-assembled components, or IT pack. And these are actually racks of computers. Now, I've been told, I haven't gone back and checked recently, but there's about 2,500 computers inside of each IT pack environment for us to store. So when we have our new data centers being built, and we're even testing these components running underwater, we found that water is a natural coolant. But if you think about it, wait, water and computers, they don't go along together. Well, these are hardened and weatherized containers that we're actually working with other ways to improve the footprint and be good environmental citizens as well with these data centers. So we can actually use the natural resources to keep things cool. Now, this is a picture of the inside of the Chicago data center, and you notice that we have some of those pre-assembled containers. Well, if you think about it, how many servers are you looking at today? Well, there's 2, 4, 6, 7, 8 containers that are there. Remember, 2,500 servers per container. You're looking at 20,000 servers, and that's just a small part of one of those data center regions, a small part of that data center building in one of those data center regions. So Azure can really offer a lot of solutions, but we're really investing in that hardware to make sure it's reliable. So thank you for watching this episode of SMB Live Rewind. We hope you enjoyed it and have a great day.